All right, hopping in real quick to let you know about something we're super excited about. If you've known the show for any length of time at all, you'll know that Steven and I are both musicians. We've played together in bands for something like 20 years at this point, and we currently have a duo that's just the two of us, and we just put a new single out. It's available worldwide. I'll let Steven tell you how to find it, what it's called, what it's all about, and then we'll carry on with the episode. Hope you enjoy.
Yeah, the single is called In Memoriam. Our band name is Token Sacrifice. So if you just look us up on your favorite app, Spotify, Apple Music, whatever you use, you should be able to quickly find us. We got a single there, and hopefully more to come.
Yeah, exactly. There's a couple of old tracks as well you can find on most of the platforms, but this one specifically deals with like people that we've lost in our life. It's very meaningful to us, and we hope you like it as well. Anyway, until next time, have a great day. Working Man's Weightlifting Show, the show where working men talk about weightlifting. I'm your host, Nick Wiley, and I'm joined today by my younger brother and permanent co-host, Mr. Steven Wiley.
Nice
how
intro.
I'd do it if you were an NFL player.
Wow.
Sadly, you're not. Welcome. How's it going?
Pretty good. How are you?
Not bad. Not bad. Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
I'm pretending that we haven't just been shooting the breeze for like an hour. Well, why don't we just jump right in and do a recap and then talk about the topic of the day. But before we do that, as always, we got to talk about the sponsor. We got to get the red tape out of the way so that we can just move right into what the people are really here for. And, you know, who is the sponsor? I'm so excited about this.
Who is it?
This bit's probably getting old, isn't it? Should probably just not do this anymore. If you've been here before,
it's been going on a while.
Yeah, you know the drill. I think for 4 years now.
Yeah.
5 years now. This has been the joke. But, you know, one day there may be money involved, and then it will be sellouts. But until then, we can say whatever we want.
That's right.
You know, roughly within the bounds of legalities and all those things. But we're not bought and paid for. That's all I'm saying.
You're right.
Real hardworking, honest, blue-collar man. Gosh, got a frog in the throat there.
Kind of helped.
Yeah, it did. It made it a little more authentic. Anyway, you know, if you'd like for there to be money involved, the best thing you can do is tell somebody else about this show. And then, you know, if we eventually get popular.
Or if you're a sponsor, just go ahead and shoot us an email.
That'll work too. Yeah, that'll work too. And you can also actually give us money. If you'd like to do that, we'd be eternally grateful. You can buy something from us at shop.workingmansweightlifting.com. You can support us with just a good old-fashioned donation at support.workingmansweightlifting.com. Now that that's out of the way, moving on to the quick recap. What has been going on in the last week, you know, since the last time we recorded? How about you?
I'm first.
You're first, yeah.
Cool. The training has been going well. Well, I think we talked about it in one of the last episodes, but we've got a new program where we're doing some strength days and some hypertrophy days. Everything's going smoothly. This was actually the first week where on the hypertrophy day, I did not hit all of my reps.
Okay.
So now I can tell it's starting to get a little heavier.
Yeah.
But that doesn't scare me. I kind of like getting there. I'm more nervous when I'm like, it's going too good.
Yeah. Right.
So it wasn't like a bad workout or anything. I was a little bit probably under rested.
Yeah.
Like I just
had a couple of really hard work days.
Yeah,
right?
and it was freezing cold that day. It was Friday when we worked out. It was bitter cold in the basement gym.
Yeah.
So cold that we actually turned a heater on. I haven't done that.
Yeah.
I don't think I've done that since we've lived in the house.
Oh, wow.
It was cold.
Yeah.
So that kind of zapped it for me. I don't know why. I was just not feeling.
To be clear, it's like 19 degrees Fahrenheit outside that day, which here we live in central North Carolina. That's pretty cold for this region, you know. So
but
I know
it was weirdly cold that day. It felt even colder. It felt
that was the thing. It's like the wind chill or whatever they call it was like. It felt like it might as well be like -5. It was
it really did. Yeah,
super awful.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the deal with that is, but
So I think that mixed with some rest, probably pulled me off a little bit, but I'll just get right back at it next week and continue on. But the strength days, I'm consistently deadlifting in the 300s, squatting in the upper 200s, getting close to 300 pounds again.
Yeah.
That is not like a max or anything. That's just what I'm training at. So I'll hit 5 reps and move on. It feels very good right now. Like I haven't had any issues of missed reps or anything like that on the strength days at all.
Right.
But I intentionally kind of pulled all the numbers back when we started that program and just went for, I'm just trying to get to good reps in, make sure everything's feeling right, not blasting through anything too quickly or anything like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so far it's going really well. Not really any complaints. Most of my weird nagging injuries are all at the moment staying away.
That's good, especially given the cold.
Yeah. My knee, I have like a weird knee pain going on that I don't think is related to, it's a weird, it's not something I've really experienced before, but I will say I did notice on this week of squats, the bar was kind of moving around my back some. I had a big hoodie on. I think it had to do with that. And I was squatting with a different bar. We have two different Rogue barbells, and I was using the one that my wife normally uses. And it doesn't have as much knurling, so it was actually not gripping to my back as well. Mm-hmm. The shift in that, I could tell threw me off, and my knee was hurting. And when I realized that, I kind of fixed it, and then my knee didn't hurt after that. So I think that's where some of that knee pain is coming. I think the bar has been moving a little bit, and I wasn't really paying enough attention. So
yeah. I've been thinking for a while that it would be really nice to, I don't know where you get them. Actually, this might be interesting for the listeners of the show for us to kind of figure this out, but it'd be really cool to get a bunch of those like wall mirrors that you would have in a normal gym, because it's hard to know. It would be easier to look at your own form.
It is. It's nice.
Right now, the surroundings, if you want to picture it, if you're listening to this, Steven's home gym basically is all concrete cinder blocks, and then you've hung a bunch of like flags that are like different bands that we like, or
TV shows, games,
all kinds of sort of like buying a poster, but they're flags. So it looks kind of like a boxing gym, a little bit like a basement boxing gym. I think is kind of the vibe of it, which is, I think, is really cool. But it would be nice to have at least a couple of mirrors in there that you could put in front of the squat racks or something. So, maybe we'll figure that out.
Yeah.
Which I assume will be like anything. It's probably harder to do than you might think at face value, because aren't like bad, like cheap mirrors are supposed to be like really distorted, right? Like they're not accurate.
Yeah, you might be right.
To what you see at all. I don't know why that piece of dumb information is in my head, but whatever. Anyway, I'll hop in briefly. We're doing essentially the same program, except that I'm doing the one hypertrophy day at my house instead of coming to your gym. So I'm only going to Steven's gym twice a week. The biggest thing for me to say is that I said this last time, but for some reason, it's like sticking with me more this time. I don't know what it is. It's been a long time since I've actually like decided I'm doing a program and then actually done everything on the program for any length of time at all. Usually I sort of aim for 100 and end up at 70. And I've said before that I still think that's helpful, because if I weren't aiming for 100, I just wouldn't do anything. But it is not that helpful, like mentally, when you're just never achieving what you set out to do. And you've pointed that out before. And for some reason, I can't tell you why, but I just my personality, I'm sure. And the fact that I'm too much of a yes man, I'm over committed on too many levels. And I'm sure that, basically what always happens, I just always run out of steam. By the end of the week, I'm just like, I'm not going to go or whatever. I'll start out Monday like, oh yeah, I go to the gym, get strong. And then by the end of the week, I'm just like, no way. But for some reason, this time around,
doing well.
It's stuck with me. So it helps that Fridays generally are supposed to be at my house, so it's a little bit easier. I can get up later, which is really nice. And I'm using all dumbbells for everything I'm doing on that day, which is a nice little lead in to the topic of the day, which is barbells versus dumbbells. If you're a beginner lifter, if you're maybe lower intermediate, hopefully this information might be useful to you. But we thought we'd kind of like generally dive into what is the difference between barbells and dumbbells? Why would you choose one over the other? And then what are the things to sort of consider, I guess, in terms of like, I think what we were thinking is like sort of what feels normal, because they achieve different things and they are optimized for different things. And so you got to understand that if you're choosing one over the other, or like in my case on Fridays, like I don't really have the choice of a barbell because I don't have one here. So it's not a choice as much as it is learning the limitations of what, one may have or the other. So I guess I'm going to be throwing some questions at you. These are not premeditated at all. I'm totally firing from the hip, but I'll try to do my best.
It works.
That's what we do around here. If you're new to the show, that's how we roll.
It's good.
Zero preparation. So generally, just from a broad stroke perspective, what in your mind, sort of why would one choose a dumbbell movement over a barbell movement or vice versa? Quickest answer you can give, 30-second elevator version. What does it boil down to?
Why would you choose one just based off of like your own feeling? Is that what you're asking?
I'm asking if someone had the option of both, why would you choose one over the other?
Okay. Essentially the barbell you would choose for maximum strength because you can load it incrementally, meaning you can get little 1/2 pound weights.
Yeah.
1 pound weights, 5 pound weights, 2.5 pound weights, whatever. Went backwards there. It helps a lot though, because if you plateau, so you're doing 5 reps, you reach 5 reps, you may fail if you add 5 pounds to the bar next week, but you might not fail if you add 1 pound to the bar.
Right.
So then dumbbells,
people call that micro loading. Is that another word? Okay.
Yeah. I think they call those micro plates or something.
Okay.
So you got that. Then with dumbbells, you've got more maybe range of motion, independent limbs. So like if you're, like in your case, Nick's talked a lot about his bad shoulder. I've told him to do dumbbell overhead press because he really needs to work on the left shoulder. And he's noticed, he can talk about it, but the right shoulder, or the good shoulder, right shoulder, I believe, takes over on the barbell a little bit more because it's kind of all connected into one unit like that. Not a bad thing necessarily for strength. Like you can lift more weight with a barbell, but the left shoulder is not getting as much out of it.
Yeah, that kind of plays into like they're good for different things. Like you might say that it's almost like what is good about one is the reason why you might the words are failing me, but it's almost like the fact that here's the example I'm going for. Because both limbs are stabilizing a barbell, you are basically removing any little problems you might have with one limb over the other, and you're able to just compensate for that and move more weight.
Sure.
So on the one hand, you might say that's an advantage for strength training. The other hand, you might say it's a disadvantage for like mobility, I guess would be the...
and like some symmetry, like keeping everything the same.
Right. So like you're saying, it's actually good that like our bodies are amazing at compensating for deficiencies. I mean, we all have everybody's got one leg longer than the other. Everybody's got something weird, and your body is just like very natural at, compensating for that.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of good about barbells, but also like if you're trying to, I suppose, work on that issue specifically, maybe that's not the right tool.
Yeah. Yeah. And, on that line too, though, I mean, you can definitely strength train with dumbbells. It just gets more difficult because of the way they're loaded. You can't micro load a dumbbell, unfortunately. Typically you can get the style where you put little barbells on them.
Yeah.
But they get really awkward really fast. I mean, you can't really rest them on your knees because they probably have there's basically a little pole that you're sitting them on, just stab you right in the knee.
You're talking about the dumbbells that are they're little barbells. They're little tiny.
Little tiny barbells. Yeah, that you basically load.
Old school.
Yeah, we had those, I think, starting out. and I remember, I think we got him up to like 70 or 75 pounds and we're trying to bench with him. And it was just so awkward just to lay down on the bench and hold those things. It was, we were like handing them to each other. Pretty miserable.
Hard to, I guess I might say I would not recommend that product to anyone unless you're just on a crazy budget, because you can probably go to like a used sporting goods store and buy a set of those for like $40.
Yeah. Or like a yard sale or something. Yeah. I mean, I think we got to be,
so yeah, if you need to get started, like, you know, anything's better than nothing. But in terms of if you're just choosing something based on its merits, the little tiny barbells are, and not to mention, they're a total pain in the butt to change weights.
Oh yeah.
So if you need
it takes
them,
forever.
Yeah. You basically almost have to like preload them for like like a generic weight that you need that day and just use that, because they're such, it takes so long to like,
and then they get real big. Like say you're doing a bench press, if you have too big of a plate on there, it's like rubbing into your forearm or something. Yeah. They're just not comfortable. I mean, if you can find any other method, I would recommend it.
If you're hearing us recommend dumbbells, there's basically two styles that we're going to recommend. One is your stereotypical, like the kind you're used to seeing at a gym or even like a hotel gym, like where you have individual dumbbells that range across.
Yeah.
So, you know, you've got like a rack of them, which Steven actually has now in his home gym. But for a long time, we used, I guess you call them like sort of quick select, there's maybe another
selectable dumbbells.
Selectable dumbbells. Yeah, that's the and there are several manufacturers of those. We've talked about them a lot in the past. Power Blocks are the ones that we recommend. They're also probably the most expensive, but they're amazing. They'll last
There's
forever.
some new ones out now that I've never tried.
Yeah. And then before that, we used Nautilus, Select Tech, I think they were called.
Yeah.
If I remember right. And
Bowflex has the same kind.
Yeah, the Bowflex. In fact, I'm pretty sure those are the actual same product with a different name on them.
They actually lasted for years.
They did.
They really weren't bad.
Yeah.
They just didn't. Eventually, the locking mechanism gave out on it. Wouldn't hold the weight anymore.
Yeah. That's the main difference. It's reliability, but you're weighing that against space. That's probably another thing to talk about quickly. I know I said the 30-second version. Here we are 10 minutes later. But the other thing, you know, you can, if you use selectable dumbbells and a bench, you've pretty much got a rig that you can do full body workouts that takes up very little space. That's what I have now in my home office. You know, dumbbells can take up more space, but like in your case where you got a whole rack of them.
Yeah.
But generally, if you need like a very compact rig, like that's going to be the smallest thing, because we're not going to recommend barbell training without a squat rack, period.
Right.
I don't, I mean, unless you would say otherwise. I wouldn't, you know, that's a $400 or $500 purchase alone, plus the space that it takes up, which is significant. So, you know, it's definitely a commitment if you're going full barbells. And we always talk about buying it. I mean, if you go to a gym, like a commercial gym, you don't have to make any, you can use whatever you want. I mean, almost all of them are going to have all these things, and you just decide what you want. But even then, you know, there's little considerations, because most gyms don't have as many barbells as they do dumbbells. So if you're waiting in line, you know, or, you know, you go at a popular time, you know, you might have to deal with that. Some are different though. I mean, I've seen videos of people that like pure strength gyms where they basically only have squat racks, but there's none of those around here.
Right.
That I know of. Yeah. I mean, most of them are like family gyms where they'll have maybe 2 squat racks, maybe 2, maybe just 1. So you're just you're kind of like, just hope you go at 5 a.m. You'll probably be all right. I don't know.
Yeah. And the other disadvantage with a dumbbell is going to be, if you're trying to go for strength, eventually on something like a squat or a deadlift, if you really want to get strong at those movements, you just can't get heavy enough. You're gonna get so strong that pretty quickly that even if you have a 100-pound dumbbell, doing a squat holding a 100-pound dumbbell, however you decide to hold that, sounds like a lot of weight on a dumbbell, but that's not much weight on a barbell. Like you're going to get to a 100-pound squat really quickly on a barbell.
Yeah.
And then you're going to get way beyond that, because you can it racks easier on your body. Like you hold it, the bar fits on your back easier. Right. If it's in your hands, better for a deadlift. You can kind of leverage against it a lot better than just holding a dumbbell. That's just kind of, holding a 100-pound dumbbell is kind of difficult in and of itself. Not because you're weak, it's just awkward. The shape of it's really awkward and everything. You can get around it a little bit, I would say, with something like a kettlebell, just because of the shape. You can rack it like in the rack position, they would call it. So you're kind of holding it up to your chest, but just the way the kettlebell sits on you. If you hold like 2 kettlebells, for example, you hold 2 75-pound kettlebells or 85-pound kettlebells. That's a decent bit of weight, actually, and you're going to burn your legs. I mean, you're going to feel that.
Sure.
But still, you can't go to 286 pounds next week when you did 85 pounds today.
Yeah.
So you have to get more creative. And that was kind of the other thing I wanted to say. The creative side is probably where I think people get confused because they follow a program. The program says 3 sets of 5 or 3 sets of 8, 5 sets of 5, 5 sets of 10, whatever program you're following. It's going to say that. And so you're going to follow that with the dumbbells, with the barbell. And as you go along, let's say you're hitting the barbell and you're going for, each week you're hitting your 5 sets of 5 and you add 5 pounds to the bar, Well, now, like I said earlier, you can't quite get 5 pounds. So now you add 3 pounds to the bar.
Yeah.
And then that gets a little bit harder. So now you add 2 pounds, 1 pound, whatever. You keep going up very low, little small increments. Eventually, you're just getting stronger and stronger. You will hit a plateau eventually, but it takes a very long time. You can add weight to the bar for a very long time, and that will help build more muscle, more strength, everything. With the dumbbells, like I said, you're going to be kind of capped at whatever dumbbells you have. So even if, like in our case, we have old school dumbbells that go from 5 pounds up to 90 pounds. We have pairs of each one.
Yeah. And
then we have the power blocks that go from 5 pounds to, I think, like 120.5 or something weird like that. Some weird number, I remember.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of choices there, but still, when you get to like a 100-pound dumbbell bench press, it's much harder to go to a 105-pound dumbbell bench press than it is to do 100 pounds on the barbell and then do 105 pounds because you're using your full body. Like you just mentioned, it's all connected. The barbell's connected.
And technically,
that's more weight.
What you just said, it's twice as much of a...
Exactly. It's a huge jump.
Because you're adding, you'd have to add 5 to each arm.
Yes. So it's way harder. In your head, it's like, oh, it's only 5 pounds, but it's actually 5 per side. There's no, like you said, there's nothing that can kind of compensate your individual arms moving. So what I usually do, and what Nick actually, you kind of came to me with that question because Nick was saying he's been doing lateral raises for his shoulders. So that's where you take the dumbbell and kind of go out to the side to build the kind of the middle of your shoulder, basically what rounds out your shoulder in like a t-shirt. Nick was like, hey, because of his bad shoulder, he's like, I don't think I can add any more weight at all. Like I'm already hitting the reps, but there's no way I can add weight. I'm like shaking already. The solution, at least that I come up with, is to just simply change the rep scheme when you're doing a dumbbell movement. So in this case, we're doing 3 sets of 8, I believe is what's kind of prescribed in the program.
That's right.
What I do and what I've been doing is I'll just, the next week I'll shoot for 3 sets of 9. If I get 2 sets of 9, 1 set of 8, okay. Then the next week still shooting for 3 sets of 9. Once I hit that, 3 sets of 10, 3 sets of 11. And I'll just keep increasing that. Most likely, if you get up into the 15 range, 15 to 20, we'll say, you probably will be able to add some weight to that dumbbell now and go back to the 3 sets of 8. And then once again, I would just start the same process. Maybe you're hitting 3 sets of 5. We'll just work to 8 and then get to 9, get to 10, and keep kind of manipulating that rep range. Biggest reasons being, number one, that's not a big strength movement. You're not winning a powerlifting competition with a lateral side raise.
Right.
It's really a hypertrophy movement, just a shoulder health movement, whatever you want to call it. So it doesn't really matter how many reps you're doing for one, but that's a good way to make progress, weekly and monthly progress, without kind of just falling apart on the program, being like, oh, I don't really know what to do anymore. Because that used to happen to me too. I would see a program that would talk about dumbbell curls, and I would just like hit the reps and then be like, okay, I can't continue to go up weight. It's so heavy now that I can't hardly get this thing up now.
Yeah.
But if I go back 5 pounds, I can hit all the reps. Like, what should I do? So that's my solution. I sometimes I might even drop the weight and go ahead and increase the reps. So if it's 3 sets of 8, maybe I'll drop it down 5 to 10 pounds and I'll do 3 sets of 12 and then start building back up to 3 sets of 15, or maybe even, like I said, 3 sets of 20, depending on the movement, and kind of build up. And so, like an example for myself, I've started doing that. I've started to get a little bit of like a elbow pain from being kind of stupid and filming myself doing a pull-up. Some friends of ours asked how much I could do with a weighted pull-up. So I just started adding 45-pound plates to my belt and doing pull-ups. And as soon as I did that, my elbow flared up. And so I've noticed body weight pull-ups and chins don't really bother me. So right now I'm kind of, any part of the program that says chin-ups or pull-ups, I'm just using body weight and I'm continuing to add reps. Like this week, I think I did 3 sets of 12 each time.
Okay.
So I'm just, maybe one of them was 5 sets, but either way, I think I'm at 12. So next week I'll go to 13 and I'll just keep building that, hopefully to like 20. And then maybe when I hit 20, I may start adding a little bit of weight back, like 5 pounds, 10 pounds, whatever. I know the strength's still there. I could still add a decent bit of weight and do pull-ups, but it feels better to my elbow, and it's a good way to make progress. It keeps you excited. Like every time I come to the bar, I know, okay, well, last week I hit that. Feels good when you hit 1 extra rep. And again, it's all about the progress, really. That's your biggest thing. So how to keep up with that? Like we're using an app for our program, the Strong Lifts app, and we've talked about it a lot. It just tells you 3 sets of 8. You can manipulate it, but I'm not going to take the time every week to change that rep range just every single week. It's just, that's too much aggravation for me. Right. So I actually keep a physical log on top of that just because I'm kind of old school and I enjoy it. I like to be able to go back and look at things. So what I would recommend is just keep a log of some sort so you know how many reps you hit the week before. Even if it's just a simple piece of paper, like a cheap little notebook from your local office supply, whatever, just get it and then make sure you're just recording how many reps you hit so you know each week you're actually making progress. And like I said, if you're adding 1 rep and then the next 2 sets are back to what you did the week before, you still just did more than last week. So you have made progress. Yeah.
We did a whole episode years ago. Like probably one of the very first episodes we ever did was on tracking your progress using either a fitness tracker app or we talked a lot more, I think, about notebooks that are available.
We did,
to do it physically. And so if you need information on that, be sure to check out that episode and beware that we probably were a little bit more awkward on the mic back then.
but the thing is too, those apps are really, really cool, but I have had them fail before randomly, and then you don't have your progress anymore. That's why I keep a physical one, and it drives me nuts. So
I'm using the Strong Lifts app now, and I think it's the best one I've found so far. Mm-hmm. But I would go as far as to say that if I was actually making an honest recommendation to someone, I do think paper is better because exactly what you just said. You don't what especially you run into is like if you're doing exactly what the app tells you to do, it's one thing. But if you ever need to like track something outside or like you need to tweak something or whatever, that's when you run into trouble. And some of them can accommodate it better than others, but paper is never going to bark back at you. Whatever you write down, it's just going to be there.
I like the app has other things, like it connects with the watch and keeps like a rest timer going and stuff. So I still enjoy using it, but I just, if it's something where I'm going to manipulate the reps like that, I don't sweat it. I'm not going to, like I said, I'm not going to take the time to go in there and edit the app. I'm just writing that down and moving on.
Right.
It's much faster to me. It's easy to keep up with. And like I said, it's fun to be able to go back over time. You might randomly one day remember some program you did 3 years ago, and you can go through your notebook and actually find that what you were doing each week and be like, oh, that was pretty cool. I forgot I did that. My wife does that all the time. Actually, she'll randomly want to change something up and she'll go back and see what she did and be like, wow, I just did that 3 years ago or whatever. And it's like, that's crazy.
I've often thought that would be a sweet like merch item that we could do is like a fitness tracking journel. Like
that would be cool
with our brand on it.
That'd be very cool.
But I imagine that's the kind of thing we'd have to get mass produced in order to like we're not going to get those
needs some pre-orders.
Demand. We'd have to have a lot of people line up for them to get it at a decent rate. So maybe one day, Anyway, last thing I was thinking we could talk through in this whole thing is, especially if you are more on the beginner spectrum, what are some expectations that you should have about, especially if you're doing, well, I guess really either, but I guess really the question is, especially dumbbells, like what are the lifts that you can expect to load pretty heavy? And then what are some examples of lifts that you just are going to hit a plateau like pretty quickly? And I don't think they always are what people think they might be. Like you think you see these videos or whatever, and you think, man, I should be able to do a ton of weight on, an example would be curls is the one that comes to my mind. And, like, I don't know, like, do you have any opinions about, like, maybe give us three options of exercises that you can get pretty heavy on, even if it's a dumbbell, and then maybe three that you're always going to have to lean on that light side and then just go for reps?
Probably, I mean, to me, the dumbbell bench press is the main one I would think of when I think people tend to get really heavy with, because it's the cool one. It's what everybody wants to do. And you see some guys do some pretty impressive things, but like I've said before, they don't make dumbbells but so heavy, so they'll get weird and take rubber bands or whatever and attach them to the dumbbells. It gets crazy, but that's definitely one that gets heavy. The goblet squat, where you hold the dumbbell up kind of at your chest, that you can get really heavy with, in my opinion, for a dumbbell. But it's like I mentioned earlier, your legs are not going to be what gives out first. It's going to be your ability to hold that thing more or less, or maybe like it feels weird on your back or something because of how you're holding it. But your legs are like, they're going to burn, but they're not. I don't think your legs are going to give out. You're not going to get to a set of 5 and be like, I cannot do another squat. That will happen quickly. Like you'll build up that capacity pretty quickly. But any of the kind of isolation movements, like your triceps, if you're doing a skull crusher with a dumbbell, a kick, like a tricep kickback, any of the shoulders, like rear delt raise, lateral raise, any of that. If you're using really strict form, I mean, you'll see professional bodybuilders not really using that much weight on those movements because it's just not a strong muscle. So that's where I would say the rep range really kind of comes into play. A deadlift, I think you even mentioned this before, that you've tried doing that you can get like very strong at that quickly with dumbbells. It's just more the awkwardness again, because it's just very odd feeling to bend down that low and pick up heavy dumbbells.
That's right.
But what you can do is like a RDL, a Romanian deadlift with dumbbells, where you start from the top. So you just kind of get them out of the rack. And as long as you can handle whatever you're holding, you keep more of a stiff leg, and it's more focused on your hamstrings, and you bend over, but not as far. You kind of bring it down below your knees and then come back up. And that movement, it's a little less awkward. So you can kind of hold the dumbbells, and like I said, as long as you can hold whatever weight you're handling, I don't think your legs are going to give out as soon as your grips, basically.
Yeah, right.
And then dumbbell rows that's a really good one that you can get strong on. And I see a lot of professional bodybuilders and powerlifters using that, because there's a lot of variations. There's croc rows. There's just normal dumbbell rows where you're kind of bent over like a bench. Yeah. There's some where you stand at the rack. I do that a lot, where you just kind of bend over the rack and lift it from there, but you're in like a standing position. To me, those you can get pretty heavy with, because you can use a little bit of leg momentum, especially like the croc row. It just puts a little more of a full body effect in the row. But anytime you isolate something, which is essentially what the dumbbell is doing, the weight is just going to come down because you're not using your whole body with it. And all of the barbell movements more or less use your full body.
Right. Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's most of what there is to say about that.
Yeah.
Do you have any final thoughts about, somebody who's confused about what to use for what, or, like, I guess trying to sort of decipher, like navigate their way through? I
mean, I would say I started with nothing but dumbbells when I started in the home gym.
Yeah.
So when we very first started kind of building stuff, we used exclusively dumbbells for years. I had the first set you were talking about, the Nautilus set, it only went to 52.5 pounds, I think was the max. And pretty quickly we got to where we could use that for a lot of different movements. Then we bought the power blocks, and that kind of unlocked another significant amount of time that we could train and make progress. I don't think there's anything wrong with dumbbells at all for really, I mean, for life, honestly. You can use them for about anything. I did not even know everything we could do back then, especially with leg movements like the RDLs or goblet squats or anything. But if your goal is just you want to be strong and you want to get as big and as strong as possible, the barbell is, as most people say, barbell is king in the gym. It's the one that's going to get you the strongest, the fastest, and the biggest, the fastest. But dumbbells are great at isolating things. And if you care more about just being lean and healthy and strong, but not, powerlifter strong men strong, then
like functional strength. Versus,
like if you, you want to feel good, just stay in shape, all those things, then you could literally train with dumbbells for your whole life and you would be completely fine. It's just the barbell is great at, if you want to get to where you're deadlifting 500, 600 pounds, whatever, squatting 400 or 500 pounds, that's the only way you're going to do it. You're not going to hold two 200-pound dumbbells to do a squat because you're probably never going to find that.
Right. They would be so awkwardly huge that even if you could find them.
I think they have them in like what's called a circus dumbbell. Like strongmen will use to like show off.
Okay.
But they're insanely awkward.
Is that the ones that are like big balls on the ends?
I think so. Yeah. And they're just
like a big peanut.
Yeah. Like it's more about like a feat of strength. Like you would show off circus. Like you would look, watch this man lift this over his head or whatever. It's like, it's cool to do that, but it's really not. I wouldn't recommend somebody to buy a 200-pound dumbbell if you could find it, because what are you going to do with it?
Exactly.
The kettlebell, a little different. They have a name for them, actually. They get extremely heavy like that. Little different because you could do like a really heavy kettlebell swing, and you actually could probably pick that up fine. You could deadlift it, whatever. You'd have some limits on what you could do with it, but I do actually think I could talk myself into buying a heavy kettlebell way before I would talk myself into buying a pair of insanely heavy dumbbells, just because there'd be a few more movements I could get out of it. But even still, I mean, just your typical heavy set of dumbbells getting up to 90 to 100 pounds, you can get a lot of years of really good, solid training out of that. And, we did it, like I said, for probably 5 or 6 years, honestly, maybe longer.
Yeah, that sounds right. Cool deal. Well, I think maybe we'll wrap it up there. Trying to keep these things a little bit shorter these days, Yep. Make a little bit better use of people's time, or you can just move on and listen to another episode of the Working Man's Way. Anyway, as always, thanks for being here and for lending us your ear, as I like to say. Until next time, I've been Nick.
I've been Steven.
And we've been the Working Men who talk about, dang it. Every single time I mess this up. We have been the Working Men who lift weights and talk about it on this show. And we'll catch you next time.